Revolution Rango. Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion, Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio. To Revolution Radio, Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion, Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio.
Welcome to Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold, your host. Tune in for what's really happening every Thursday. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. in Studio A on Revolution Radio. They keep us in fear to manipulate us. They want us ignorant so we're easier to enslave. They make us murder one another so they don't have to do it themselves. Only you can break their mind control by healing the contradictions within your belief systems that allow you to accept their lies in the first place. The time has come for us to remember our divinity, who we really are, to return to what we are meant to be, a service to others, to return to nature, and to reclaim our birthright, that which is freedom. The truth will sound belligerent because it is in direct opposition to lies, so get angry, because anger is sacred, and together we can unite and rise. Rise from this darkness. Humanity, assemble.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome to Plato's Cave. That's right, coming to you from Australia, the land down under. I apologize, I was stuck in an update loop, but hopefully we can get the show on the way now. I assume I'm alive and well. Here we go. On Studio A, yep, I'm here. Very good. And I'm watching the stream. That's wonderful. Okie dokie. Now, this is Listener Funded Radio, so if you can donate, please do. If you've got cash spare, any kind of cryptocurrency is good as well. Do what you can. Do what you can, says I. But if you can't, that's okay. Tell people about the station. That's good, too. Tell people about the station. Let them know what kind of content there is. And most of all, it's free. Another thing that's free are the archives, which is also another good reason to come and listen to the shows that are here for free. All right. Now, any platform is good, any app, and even at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. It's all good. Now, Dave is not with me. Dave is at Bathurst this week, and I think I'll be here by myself for the next few shows, including next Sunday's show for The Shiny Side Out. I'm sure we're going to have lots of fun, and we're going to learn many wonderful things. But before I start broadcasting at you in anger, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I'm broadcasting, and of course from here in sunny Pemberway, it's the Darug people. And I would like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and future. Thank you very much. Okay, here we are then. Here we are. Excellent. Okay, now I'm on. Yeah, thanks, Comet. All good here. Luckily, only with a couple of minutes into the show, Discord decided to be updated, and it's now updated. There were 8 updates, it appears, which is just what you need. Now, what can we talk about tonight? A great many things that are going on at the moment. And one thing I need to focus on for today, unfortunately, is Donald Trump. Now, why Why, oh why, says you, Donald Trump? What could we possibly learn that we haven't learned already? Okay. Donald Trump has done pretty much nothing that is furthering the cause of the American people. The American people, right? So let's look at this in some detail here, because we got time, and I'm feeling melancholic. So Donald Trump came into office, started his tariffs. That's wonderful. Now this is the very first thing that happened, pretty much, right? He also pardoned all of the Gen 6 people. Okay, he said he would. He did, all of them, including the ones that are facing, fairly serious criminal charges. All are pardoned. Okay, which is an unusual thing to do. To pardon the ones that were just, involved on the periphery or had no greater ill intentions, fair enough. But certainly some of the people that displayed great violence and hurt people, that is, or property for that matter, that was probably a bad idea. Okay. So that happened. Then the tariffs came hard and fast. Now what did the tariffs do? The tariffs did a number of things. And I need you to look at this from the point of view of how is this good for the American people? Okay? Because that's what it's meant to be. This is the United States president. What he does should be good for the American people. Or for a big chunk of the American people. Makes sense, yeah? Now, the tariffs came in, and arbitrarily, and how they were calculated is still a mystery to me. Now, tariffs in and of themselves really have one function. They're meant to protect your industry from some foreign industry by making it more expensive to buy the foreign good than ideally the goods that you sell. It is complete nonsense to raise tariffs against goods, services, or items that your country does not produce. Makes no sense because you're not protecting anything. Well, you're just taxing. Okay. Now, the idea to bring jobs back to America is a great idea. I thought, to be honest with you, that COVID would have done that. I was really astounded that the supply chains remained as they were. But I think what that shows is just how addicted to profit the global corporations are. Right? Even when it became painfully obvious that these long supply chains are vulnerable to things like pandemics and, I guess, global wars or natural catastrophes or things like that, still the corporations did not change in any great way their supply chains or countries of production. Which it did surprise me. I'll be honest with you, it did surprise me greatly. Okay. Now, since then, people have not fully understood what tariffs are. Tariffs are levied against the importer of whatever foreign good or service there is. Let's take, cars, right? Like foreign cars. So a German car would cost you $10,000, right, if you bring it in as the importer, and then you sell it for $15,000, making a tidy profit, right? With a tariff, depending on how big the tariff is, let's say someone puts 100% tariff on it, all of a sudden the $10,000 car costs you $20,000. In order to still make a profit, or the same kind of profit, you now have to sell it for $25,000. So that's an increase to the consumer of $10,000. So the tariff is paid by the American consumer. That's evidence point number one. Tariffs are not helping Americans. Tariffs are making things more expensive for Americans. Okay. Now, a lot of people have said, the tariffs, what they've done is, we've got all these, all the investment flowing in from other countries, building factories, they're going to do this, that, and the other, and, billions and trillions and gazillions of dollars are being invested in the United States because of tariffs. Now, that is not entirely true. Some things cannot be made in America, and some things America doesn't have enough of, and some things aren't grown in America. America doesn't really grow any avocados. America doesn't have enough iron ore or aluminum, as you call it, or none of that. So they have to import it. America has to import a whole bunch of stuff because they don't have enough themselves. That's normal. That's what happens. You bring some stuff in, you make stuff, and you sell it to other countries. Okay, so it's a fairly tight-knit global trading community, which, in my opinion, is not the ideal way to go, but that's where we are. These companies are not going to bring manufacturing back to America, or if they are, it's going to be very, very small scale. Why? Because of profits. It is too expensive to manufacture in the United States because labor costs are too high. Not just labor costs, but insurance, taxes, etc., etc. It is a lot cheaper, and by a country mile, to produce in China, Bangladesh, India, anywhere really, right? And so yes, so some companies have moved out of China, but they have not moved to America. They have moved instead to India or Bangladesh or again, elsewhere, because it doesn't make economic sense. Another thing that you have to consider is that it takes years to build factories up, and it takes years to train people to work in those factories, right? Donald Trump is going to be in power for 4 years, if he adheres to his term. And we're already a year into his second term, so there wouldn't be any company in the world that would invest. I mean, promise, yes, they will promise everything. They talk a great deal, but they won't actually spend any real money, right? And let me put it this way. They will only spend enough to placate Donald Trump. That's how much money they're going to spend. Just enough to give the appearance that they're agreeing with Donald Trump. They're bringing manufacturing back. They're going to invest in America, etc., etc. It's a good idea to invest in America for certain things. High-end goods, high-end electronics, high-end biotech. All of that stuff makes perfect sense to invest in America. Car manufacturing? Not really. Right? Not really. That's just my opinion. The high-end tech stuff, I would absolutely say, yeah, 100%. Invest in America. Build the factories there. Absolutely. Now, bear in mind that America is the second largest manufacturer in the world. People always say Donald Trump what Donald Trump says, it comes across like America is not manufacturing anything. We've lost the manufacturing base, etc., is what he says. Not true. Second largest manufacturer in the world. Mostly military items, but still the second largest manufacturer in the world after China. Okay, that's pretty big. So America does export a huge amount of stuff, and a lot of it, the majority of it, are military goods and services. Okay, it's just the nature of the beast. Okay, so he's hurting the American public with his tariffs. They're paying more. Things are more expensive. That's a fact. You can stand on your head and argue until you're blue in the face. A fact is a fact is a fact. American people are paying more. And people with lower incomes are disproportionately punished by this. The higher income people, they don't care. They just slap a tariff on a BMW, on a Ferrari, whatever. I still buy one because I got the cash, right? Whereas I'm a consumer that is used to cheap Chinese goods or cheap Mexican goods or cheap Canadian goods. All of a sudden, they're not cheap anymore. It really hurts the average consumer disproportionately. So again, the American people are hurt at large. Not the parasites at the top, but the actual people. The working class, if you will. He also managed to alienate Canada and Mexico. Now, Canada is interesting because Canada has been America's ally since, forever, really. And his aggressive behavior, including the threat of annexation, has destroyed that relationship to a large extent. Okay? Now, this is not a small thing in the scheme of things. It's not a small thing. He has also weakened America in the global arena by withdrawing from a whole bunch of international treaties, cutting funding to U.S. aid and any kind of foreign institution that was essentially spreading American propaganda. So America remains strong and powerful and influential because it spent money with nations, helping the nations, but also making sure that those nations are adopting the American way of life, American philosophies, and look at America as a good ally and friend to, essentially rely upon. He has completely destroyed that standing of America in the world. Right? So Canada's looking elsewhere for friends. NATO knows it can no longer rely on the United States. Okay. Now, Donald Trump is not giving any weapon systems to the Ukraine. He's not doing that. He's selling the weapon systems to the Europeans, or NATO members, I should say. And then it's up to them whether or not they want to give it to Ukraine. Okay. But he's not giving it away. He's selling it. He doesn't believe in the UN at all, unless it does his bidding. He doesn't believe in any international organization, really. Okay? And this erosion of American influence in the world is something that is really, really troubling. Not only did it guarantee pretty much America's dominance for the last 80 years, but it also made sure that new generations, generations that no longer remember World War II, for example, or communism, the fight against the communist threat, are still beholden to America. So these future generations are now no longer beholden to America. And in the absence of American influence, right, China has jumped into the breach, and successfully so. Now China wishes to be the leading light, and it's funny, right? And countries are responding to it. Okay, so China is doing what it should do in its own interest. I can't fault them for it. It's makes perfect sense for China to do what it does. But it's America, I should say Donald Trump, that allowed this to happen. It's Donald Trump that allowed this to happen. I've never seen the reversals of fortunes of a nation manifest this quickly. Never. Right? This was in a matter of weeks, and then a couple of months, everything changed on a global level. Okay? So what else happened? He is not looking after the American people at all. His big, beautiful bill looked after his parasitic friends, the top echelons of power and money. They got massive tax breaks. Ordinary folks didn't. And don't talk about tax on tips and things like this. It's a drop in the ocean. Not only that, medical assistance, food assistance, a lot of assistance programs for people that actually need it is no longer there and will no longer be there by the end of the year. He's hurting the American people. Not illegal immigrants. Okay? The American people are being hurt by this. These programs are gone. American farmers are hurt by the tariffs. Yeah? Not just in selling goods and services, but purchasing materials they need to farm. Manufacturing is hurt by the tariffs because America doesn't make enough aluminum, or as you call it, aluminum, or steel, or any of the other raw materials they need to manufacture. They have to import. And you can't just stomp it out of the ground overnight. It's not possible. Doge, which was meant to bring a huge bunch of savings, has hurt the American people. Massively. They laid off people they couldn't afford to lay off. The people that looked after the American nuclear stockpile, the nuclear engineers, were all let go. And then they realized, oh, geez, we better hire them back, and couldn't because they had deleted their emails. People forget this. This only happened a couple of months ago. Same with people that were researching into infectious diseases. Oh, we better get these people back too. Programs are being shut down state by state. Right? Now, Donald Trump is deploying the military in a whole bunch of cities. That's hurting the American people. Who are the protesters in these cities? They're American citizens. Okay? Has he deported A whole bunch of people. Yes, he has. Has he deported all the right people? No, he hasn't. He has not. Okay. It's a really bad situation for the American people right now. So it goes further, though. Unfortunately, it goes much further. The next thing that is now happening is that we're moving, you in the States are moving towards an authoritarian regime which curtails freedom of speech, which ideally would make it a crime to speak out against the president, because he thinks he can do whatever he wants. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. That's the American president. That's not true. There's a check. That's how the American nation was founded. Checks and balances. You have the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, right? The Senate and Congress. You've got the court system, judicial, right? And you've got the executive, which is the president. But they all keep each other in check. The judiciary has almost given up. Not quite, but almost. The legislative, Congress and Senate have given up, or at least the Republican party, they're controlling it, they've given up. They let Trump do whatever he wants. It's astounding. It really is. And I look at some of these people in his administration. I've never seen less competent people in any political organization in any country than these Muppets. Right? It's astounding. I find it. How do these people get their job? It's a mystery to me. But it's hurting the American people. It's hurting the American people because the country is governed incompetently. Right? The damage which is being done now, you're not going to see until 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. I mean, some of the damage you can already see. Okay? But the greater damage is in the future. And this is where it gets dangerous. So he's deploying regular troops, National Guard, but also regular troops, into American cities, saying that, they're rioting, burning down, whatever. Okay. But only into cities that are run by Democrats. Right? Why is that? So only Democrat cities have crime? Again, you can look at the statistics and see there's just as much crime in Republican-run cities. But he's not sending them there. And the problem here with this is if you deploy troops, and not just National Guard, but actual regular combat troops into any city environment, doesn't matter what country, doesn't matter what army, they are trained to do one thing, which is what Pete Heck said beautifully, I think, in his speech. You're here, your job is to break things, to kill. Your job is to kill and break things. That's what he told the assembled Army and Navy and Air Force leadership in Guantanamo last week. Your job is to kill and break things. Correct. We like to downplay that these days, and say, no, that's not true. No, that's what the Army's for. That's what soldiers do. That's what they do. That's the job. That is the job. So, what happens when you put these people into civilian environments? That's what they do. They break things and they kill. Right? They're not law enforcement officers. They're just not. Okay? And I fear, now I see this coming to a head, especially with the brutality with which ICE seems to operate, and this glorified brutality against children. Now, look, are illegal immigrants a problem for America? I'm sure they are. I'm sure there's an issue there with gangs and drugs and people smuggling, prostitution, all kinds of things. I'm sure that's the truth, okay? Because other countries have the same issues. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning there are illegal immigrants in America today that are living a law-abiding life. They're not criminals. They're not drug dealers. They just came to America legally. Right? And that was wrong. Okay? But they came to America legally and they tried to make the best they could out of it for themselves and their families. That's why they're there, to live the American dream as best as they could. But they are there legally, so I understand that, right? They're not criminals. That's my point. And I know now that Trump had to backtrack on a couple of things, especially in the agricultural sector when he realized all the agricultural workers, they might be largely illegal immigrants, but we need them. We need them. Right? The same goes for the vast majority of illegal immigrants. America needs them to work. Right? And again, you can't really argue about that because it's a fact. Yes, they're bad apples, and the bad apples should be sorted out and, thrown out, 100%. Every country would do the same. Nobody would disagree with that. It'd be silly to disagree with that. But you're throwing out the wrong people in America. That's a huge issue. But it's these tactics, the glorified violence, etc., that may come to a head in America. Right? If more military is deployed, if life gets harder, if things become more expensive, yet more people are cut off from social security type payments, medical type payments, food stamps, etc., as things get worse for the American people, and this is the vast majority, the working class, yet again, right? There will be an undercurrent of discord. There will be an undercurrent of dissatisfaction. And already, Donald Trump's approval ratings are fairly low. So the midterms, which are not very far away, will be a very interesting deciding nexus, in my opinion. We will see what Donald Trump will do, because I don't think that Donald Trump or the Republican Party, for that matter, will be able to hold on to majorities in the houses. Right? I don't think that'll happen. And that's really the other issue that I have with this whole tariff thing and companies making promises to Donald Trump. The only thing that he has signed into law is the big beautiful bill, which pretty much cements the tax cuts for his billionaire parasite buddies. Little else of use to the American people. Everything else is an executive order. The next president can come in and simply rescind those executive orders. And then companies that did indeed spend billions and billions of dollars to build factories in America are all of a sudden left holding the pail because, well, the competitors didn't do it. They can't produce, manufacture, whatever, competitively in America, whereas the competitors who didn't build factories can, and therefore are in a better position to capture larger market shares. It's just the nature of the beast, right? These corporations are geared toward profit, not good citizenship or concern for the environment, right? Now this is a big problem as we go forward. And all the companies that do invest heavily into America, into industries which have no place anymore being in America, like low-level manufacturing and things like that. The high-end tech, the high-tech, the biotech, and all the future, if you will, technologies. They should definitely, come out of America. So it's a great brain base still in the United States, right? And all of these new technologies, nanotech, new materials, again, like I said before, biotech, all of that stuff is awesome. And America should be the leader in that, right? But China is really running very fast in that space, very fast. But who's going to come to America's help if the chips were down? Is my other question, right? Who would really still help America if it came to a war, for argument's sake? Right? And that's a serious question because I'm not sure who would after everything that's gone on. But let's look again at the American people. So the American people have a whole bunch of things to contend with, right? And it's hurting them. All the things that are happening are hurting the regular Joes, the regular American folk that have a tough time selling things, making things, just making ends meet, etc., etc. And it's not going to get easier, right? And if the Senate and Congress should fall to the Democrats, I'm not entirely sure how Donald Trump would do anything anymore, right? He would simply be stuck everywhere. So I don't think he would let that happen. I don't think Donald Trump can let it happen. Congress and Senate cannot go to the Democrats. Whatever it takes. They cannot. Because if they were, that would be, well, it would be a huge roadblock for him to do what he wants. Massive. All right? And we all know now that Project 2025 is something he's being associated with. He said he wasn't. He lied. He lied. And Project 2025 is now in full swing. Okay? But then his entire administration lies all the time. I've never seen anything like it. And I don't care about the Democrats at all. I don't care about any political party at all. Because I think all politicians are liars. That comes with the territory. That's their job, to lie. And the reason Donald Trump was embraced by the American, or by many American people, was because he's not a politician. Right? That was the appeal. The appeal was he's not a politician, right? He will drain the swamp. He turned the swamp into a bog, into quicksand. Okay? The corruption that he's overseeing is unprecedented. All the things that he's doing that would break the back of any Democratic president that he gets away with is mind-boggling. It really is. But that's where the American people are, right? And still they think he will come to the aid. He's not going to do anything that is not good for Donald Trump. Okay. Now this brings me to my next point. Now why would an American president do all of these things that put America in such a bad position? And it's in a bad position. Why? Because Donald Trump is personally compromised. Okay? Donald Trump is personally compromised. That's why the Russians wanted him to win the election. Okay? That's why the Russians, that's why Putin wanted him to win the election. That's why Putin can do what he wants. He can do whatever he wants. Donald Trump will do nothing that hurts Putin. Same with Netanyahu. Putin and Netanyahu are the puppet masters behind Donald Trump. It's that simple. It is that simple. There's nothing he will ever do that will hurt those two guys. And at this point, it's gotten ridiculous. You know, it's gotten to the point of where you really have to look at the situation and you can no longer look away. I know it's causing a lot of cognitive dissonance with his followers. But please open your eyes and see that Donald Trump is completely compromised. He does nothing that is good for America. He will do things that are good for him. He will do things that are good for his parasite buddies. He will do things that are good for Putin. And he will do things that are good for Netanyahu. That's it. That's all he will do. There's not a single thing that I can think of that he has done that made American life better. He's pulled back the woke movement. I agree with that. I also agree that men shouldn't compete in women's sports. I agree with that. There's a whole bunch of common sense stuff that he did that I think was a good thing, but it wasn't like a massive thing. I mean, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. What's that going to do? I mean, really, what is that going to do? What kind of impact does this have on the world? When the rest of the world still calls the Gulf of Mexico. Like, what's the difference? You know, of course, that a body of water can have two names, right? Officially. Any body of water. But what's the point? So you name it to that. Who cares? It is completely irrelevant. And he released a whole bunch of files. This brings me to my next point. That are useless. I mean, Emilia Earhart? Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't make any sense. The one thing he's not releasing are the Epstein files. Now, there are two reasons for that. Actually, three. The main reason, the big reason, is that the Epstein information, let's call it, would hurt a lot of parasites, a lot of rich, powerful people. A lot of them. Okay, you've already heard a few names being bandied about, right? So this is nothing to do with parties or Democrats or Republicans. That's why the Democrats didn't touch it. They didn't want to release them. If it had only been Republicans in the Epstein information and Donald Trump or whatever, they would have. Of course, they would have released it. Of course, they would have. Right? It's the same reason the Republicans are now not going to release it. No one ever will, unless I guess you get a libertarian as president or an independent, and then that president is probably not going to last very long. Right? That's the truth, though. The truth is that this has nothing to do with party lines. The release of the Epstein files is toxic. And the only reason the Democrats are calling for it so loudly is because they know the Republicans can't release it any more than they would have done. Right? They're just scoring political points because they can. Yeah, release it, knowing full well they will never release the files. Oh, come on, release it already. How come you don't release it? About full transparency, this and that. No, they don't. At least not the ones in the know. All right? Very powerful parasites are implicated here. And they're being protected. Not specifically by Donald Trump, by any administration. No administration will look into this. Full stop. They will not. It's a career-ending, life-ending investigation, if you will. Right? Look at all the people that have perished since then that had anything to do with it. You really think they all committed suicide? Really? Think again. Look at all the incredible sweetheart deal that Epstein received from Acosta, I think. Incredible. It's unprecedented. Like we say this a lot now these days, everything is unprecedented. We're living in the age of unprecedented. I said this before, I'll say it again. We're living in the age of unprecedented. Not just with respect to politics. Right? The other reason the files are not going to be released because the vast majority of the really compromising material is not within the United States. It's sitting with Putin and Netanyahu. Okay? Because I'm convinced, and more so now than ever, that Mr. Epstein was an asset of both the Mossad and, well, this is maybe the FSB or some other Russian agency, maybe even Putin himself directly, considering the reach that Epstein had. Epstein, who came from nothing, literally nothing, was employed into a very prestigious school in New York, very prestigious school as a math teacher, and then somehow made his millions or billions, or whatever you want to call it, right, out of nowhere almost. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell's father was an associate of Mossad. We know that for a fact. Okay. We also know that, interestingly enough, Elon Musk is very, very close to Putin. Spent a lot of time with Putin. On the phone, at least, or even in person, I'm sure. Now, it makes perfect sense for Putin to be in league with the world's richest man. Of course it does. And that's why Elon Musk had such unprecedented access to the White House and Donald Trump in the initial months. Because of Putin. Okay? Look at what happened in the months prior to the election between Putin and Elon Musk. They spent a lot of time together. And Musk wasn't a Trump supporter initially. But I think when he learned that Putin had the goods on him, I think that's when he changed horses and started supporting Trump, because it's great if I can control him. Awesome. Now, there are many things at play here. I don't think Elon Musk got everything out of Trump that he wanted to. He got a lot out of him, but he didn't get everything out of him. And I think that's because Putin didn't want to compromise Trump in order to just serve Musk. Okay, like Putin and Netanyahu certainly are playing a bigger game. So Musk had to, pull his head in. Because You might be the richest man in the world, but you can't go against the Mossad or the FSB. That's a fight you're not going to win. I don't care how rich you are. Okay, just not going to happen. I mean, people are falling out of windows all the time, right? So that's where we are. And similarly to the conflict in the Ukraine is a million Russian soldiers killed or wounded. More now, certainly. Ukrainians, hundreds of thousands, I'm sure. Gaza, 60,000 officially, probably north of, like I said, 100, 200,000 killed. An entire generation maimed and destroyed, right? What happened 2 years ago today was horrific. But I'm with Charlie Kirk here. I find it very suspicious, the circumstances. I don't think that it could have happened unless Netanyahu let it happen. Charlie Kirk himself asked, was there a stand-down order? Is this one of the reasons he was assassinated? Because he criticized Trump twice and he questioned October 7th and the circumstances leading to it? We do know that Netanyahu sent suitcases and suitcases and suitcases of money. Let the suitcases be sent to Hamas. We know he did. We also know that the Gaza operation was well planned in advance. Right? October 7th was just a trigger. Just like 9/11 was just a trigger for the invasion of Afghanistan and then later Iraq. You don't disable pagers and mobile phones overnight. This was months in the planning, if not years. And it gave Netanyahu the precedent he needed to turn Gaza into rubble, to take over the West Bank, to declare a greater Israeli state, which is where we're heading. Okay, under Trump's patronship, well, forced patronship, I guess, but, we don't know how supportive Trump really is. But, one can assume that there's at least some support that is genuine from his side. Would he still be supporting it at this point out of his own free will? I don't know. Would he not have stopped Russia by now if he were completely in charge of his own faculties and decisions? I don't know. I think, again, the complete disregard that Putin has for anything he says boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. Putin, there's no respect that Putin has for Trump at all. There's none. Netanyahu doesn't respect Donald Trump at all. Donald Trump will do what those two guys tell him. That's it. That's the long and short of it. And none of it is good for the American people. Which American president in the past has acted in such a non-American way, has acted in a way that was so detrimental to the lives and livelihoods of the American people? Name one. Name one. Not even Nixon, right? This is mind-boggling. I keep repeating it, but it is. How did we get here? I mean, China and Russia couldn't be happier. Israel couldn't be happier. The entire world has declared what's happening in Gaza to be at least a war crime, at least ethnic cleansing, but many also are saying it's now genocide, including Israelis in Israel. America says no. No, it's not. America says no. It's astounding. I don't understand how the American people cannot see what's happening. Now, actually, I do understand it. I'll tell you why. I do watch Fox News, and there's another channel. What is it called? I'll tell you. I watch Fox News, and I watch Sky News. Yeah, that's right. And I watch MSNBC, and I watch CNN, and I watch BBC, and I watch it across the board, including several foreign nations. I also watch what is this called? Oh, Bill O'Reilly, of course. He's hilarious. I like watching him. News Nation. I watch a whole bunch of stuff, news channels, etc., etc. And they're all telling stories that are completely opposite from each other. Like it's a 180 turnabout depending on which channel you go to. You've got the pundits that are on the left with Democrats. You've got the pundits on the right, that are with the Republicans. Then you got people that pretend to be in the middle. But none of them, not one of them, is addressing the real problem, except maybe one. I give him that, Cuomo. He's addressing the real problem, and he said it a number of times. I don't know how serious he is, but he said the problem is the party system. I completely agree with him. The problem that we have in the world is that we have gone down the party political route, where political parties are holding power in the world. It's complete failure. As a thing, complete failure. Most of the political parties that exist today, with the exception of the Green Party and parties like that, were formed 100 and 120 years ago, right? Maybe longer in some instances. And they represented very specific interests for very specific parts of the population. And you could hang your head on their party policy and say, yep, that's me, I can go with this. These parties no longer represent the vast majority of the constituents they represent. They just don't. Okay? Our nations have changed. Our aims have changed. Technology has changed. The world has changed. Economics has changed. Everything has changed. These parties have not. Not really. Right? And this is how Donald Trump came to power. Because there's a failure in the party political system. People don't trust politicians anymore. I can't blame them. And then again, like I said before, that's why Donald Trump came to power, because he is not a politician. Right? Or at least he wasn't. He's a liar. He's a predator, it seems. Certainly a convicted felon, which is hilarious. But he's not a politician. But he didn't drain the swamp. He didn't drain the swamp. He just didn't do that. Okay? He didn't. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that he's part of the problem. He's read in. He went to the Bohemian Grove. Did you know that? Did you know that? He went to the Bohemian Grove? He did. Right? He was at the Bilderberg conference as well. Yeah, that's true. So what do you say to that? He is part of the global parasitic system. And for the life of me, I will never understand how so many American people believed that a person like that would solve their problems or even have an interest in their problems. And none of the things he promised, as far as disclosure is concerned, have happened. You're not going to see the Epstein files. He's talking about a democratic hoax now. We all know this is not a hoax. We know there are hundreds of victims. Okay? We know that Epstein was convicted and then suicided. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison and just had her hearing denied. The Supreme Court hearing. Appeal. I think the appeal was denied. So she's going to stay in jail. But she was transferred to like a country club jail after she told the world, oh no, Donald Trump has always been a perfect gentleman. We know Donald Trump has never been a perfect gentleman. Ever. Okay? Thank you, Megalogos. 5 minutes till bumpers. Thank you so much. Okay? He has never been a perfect gentleman. Please wake up before it comes to a second civil war. Because that's where you're heading. That's where you're heading. Right? Now, the Guantanamo assembly of the military leadership was geared towards rallying the leadership around Donald Trump to bring them on board or along with his vision. You have to understand, Pete Hegseth was I think he made it to sergeant or corporal. Like he was a fairly low-ranking officer in the war. I'm not saying he wasn't brave or he didn't lead his people, but he doesn't have the years or decades of experience that was required, right? And it's incredible that he would make policy now, because a lot of senior retired military people have said that they are seeing just how inexperienced he is by the things he says, essentially, especially during the speech. Fleddy, nothing going through here. Sorry, am I not broadcasting? I hope I'm broadcasting, Fleddy. I have been broadcasting, right? I do hope so. No billionaires were harmed during this economy. Doge was there to extract all possible data from the Palantir servers. I agree. And now, oh good, thank you, Megalogos, I appreciate it. Perfect. No, look, but yeah, this has been the biggest con that has been perpetrated on the American people. Project 25 or 2025 that's what you're looking at now. That's what's happening. This is now playing out. Right? By the end of the 4 years, you will not recognize the America you live in. You're not. Right? The midterms will be the telling thing. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what happens in the midterms. I really am. And the reason I'm waiting with bated breath is because it matters what happens in America. It happens to really Element was not sending me. Okay, I got you. I'm really worried because what America does matters to the world. If America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. It's just true. Okay? It's true. It is still a very, very important country. I love America. Or at least I love the America that I imagined in my youth, right, as I grew up. And I've been to America many times, both privately and professionally. Like it's just like my wife has got like 150 relatives in America, mostly in San Francisco and in Houston, but also on the East Coast. I think a couple, right? I do love America. I love the American people. I'm just worried that you are going down the same path that Germany went down some time ago, right? Promises, false promises, none of them materialize, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a world you didn't quite choose. You find a little odd, right, to put it mildly, and there's nothing much you can do about it. Because people always ask, well, how did the Germans let this happen? How did the Nazis gain so much power so quickly? And it was intimidation, it was fear. Bear in mind, the vast majority of the Germans did not vote for Hitler. They voted for the coalition under Hindenburg. Hindenburg was an old center-right, if you will, right, in the Weimar Republic. And then when he died, before he died, he endowed Hitler with emergency powers after the Reichstagsbrand. And that's how Hitler came to power, by emergency decree. I mean, watch this here. As soon as martial law is declared, all bets are off in the States. Some incident, some terror attack, something that will necessitate the declaration of martial law, whatever it might be, right? And all of a sudden you will find yourself living in a very different world, and you all of a sudden will understand how Germany came to be so completely dominated by the Nazi Party, right? By Hitler and his people. Okay, just have a look. Just have a look. I hope it won't happen. I really do. I mean, there's a really good book called The Wave. It's an experiment that actually happened in an American school because the students didn't understand why why the Germans didn't fight back. I mean, some Germans did fight back, the White Rose, etc. And that's the music. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Plato's Cave. I'll be with you again on Thursday, probably by myself. Same time, same bad channel. Don't go anywhere. Something awesome is going to come up. I am certain of that. Donate if you can. Like, subscribe, share, comment. See us in the wild and listen to all the programs on Revolution Radio. Thank you so much for listening, and most of all, be safe.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
sleeps. Sleeps. Tune into Revolution Radio, where truth breaks the spell and information never sleeps. Never sleeps. Never sleeps. Tune into Revolution Radio, where truth breaks the spell and information never sleeps.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mecci.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.